Donald Trump is fuming as major U.S. brands quietly shift production across the border to Canada. From auto parts to electronics and even food products, companies are dodging tariffs and cutting costs while bypassing American labor. Watch the full video to find out which products moved, why it's happening now, and how Trump is reacting behind the scenes.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really unique approach to understanding information.
Yeah, it's a bit different for us.
Usually, we gather a whole stack of sources, articles, papers, notes, and we meticulously pull out those core insights, the surprising facts, the things that help you feel genuinely well-informed.
We try to synthesize a lot of material.
Exactly. But today, the source material itself is the challenge. And honestly, in that challenge, there's a really powerful lesson, I think.
Definitely.
Our entire deep dive today, our whole mission, it revolves around just one single potent excerpt. It's from a publication titled Trump's Northern Manufacturing Shift.
Right.
And within that publication, there's this headline, a headline that immediately grabs you by the collar. It feels designed to provoke, maybe even shock.
It's pretty dramatic.
It is. It reads, Trump gone mad as these big U.S. products quietly being made in Canada now.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a statement.
That's right. One headline. That's our focus for today. We're going to dissect it, analyze it, really deep dive into its essence.
What does it actually claim? What's it implying?
And maybe most importantly, what does it not tell us? Because sometimes, what's left unsaid is actually far more revealing than what's spelled out.
That's often the case with this kind of communication.
And for our listeners who we know are already pretty sharp evaluators of information, this headline, it serves as a potent reminder that even tactics that seem obvious still work. They still have immense power because they tap into our existing feelings or biases.
Our predispositions, yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this.
It is an incredibly rich starting point, even though it's so short. It's fascinating, actually. This single sentence, this headline, it feels engineered almost with remarkable precision to get a strong, immediate reaction.
Engineered is a good word for it.
Yeah. It's almost like a masterclass in how information, even tiny bits of it, can be shaped to influence how you perceive things.
Yeah.
Often by playing on raw emotion, rather than laying out direct, verifiable facts.
Right.
So our goal today isn't really to debate the politics of it, the content itself.
No, definitely not taking sides here.
No. It's to critically analyze the presentation. How is this content packaged? And what does that tell us about how we, as consumers of information, how we engage with it all in this modern age?
Absolutely. And when you first read that headline, Trump gone mad as these big U.S. products quietly being made in Canada now, the very first thing that hits you, it has to be that opening phrase, Trump gone mad.
It leaps off the page.
It's so direct, so aggressive, almost like someone's shouting at you. It's not just a statement. It feels like an exclamation, doesn't it?
Sure.
Designed to hit you before you've even really processed the rest.
Precisely. That phrase, Trump gone mad, that isn't a factual claim in any sort of journalistic sense, is it?
Not at all.
It's a highly charged judgment. It's evaluative, an emotional declaration, really. Yeah. It signals immediately that this publication, or at least this piece, is coming from a very strong opinionated viewpoint.
Not trying to be neutral.
Not at all. It's not attempting an objective report. So when you encounter language like this, especially right at the start, the very first words of a headline, it's a pretty clear indicator. You're engaging with commentary, maybe advocacy, maybe even outright propaganda in some cases, not necessarily straightforward news. It's explicitly designed, I'd argue, to trigger a powerful emotional response. Could be outrage, could be agreement, maybe just intense curiosity.
Right.
But it pulls you in often before you can even process the potential substance, or maybe the lack of substance, of the actual claim that follows it.
It's almost like a psychological filter, isn't it? Before you even get any information about manufacturing shifts or Canada or whatever, you're being implicitly told how you should feel about the situation. Or at least about the individual named.
Yeah, it frames it.
It tries to frame the whole narrative, set the emotional tone before the actual story, the substance, even really begins.
That's a really astute observation. It's a common tactic and a highly effective one in certain kinds of media, particularly those aiming for, going viral or having strong partisan appeal. They use sensational or emotionally charged words right there in the headline.
Like shocking, disaster, scandal.
Exactly. Mad, outrageous. These words aren't chosen because they're precise or impartial. Not at all. They are selected for their immediate visceral impact. their ability to generate clicks, shares, and a strong reaction, whether that's emotional or intellectual.
And that must affect how people read the rest.
Oh, profoundly. It subtly encourages you, the reader, to interpret whatever follows through an already established emotional lens. You're sort of predisposed to a certain view before you've even gotten to the main point, if there is one.
And for you, the listener, understanding how headlines get constructed like this, how they use language and emotion, sometimes quite manipulatively, it's just crucial, isn't it, for navigating today's information landscape?
Absolutely foundational.
It's a basic step in media literacy, really. It helps you develop a more discerning eye, spot potential biases, not just in the obvious statements, but in those subtle word choices. And it helps you distinguish between what might look like a factual claim and what is clearly, an opinion wrapped up to look like news.
It cultivates that critical internal question, doesn't it? That little voice asking, okay, wait, is this information or is this mainly persuasion?
Yeah, exactly. Information or persuasion.
And that's the critical difference, I think, between being just a passive recipient of information to sort of absorbing whatever is thrown at you and becoming an active critical evaluator. When a headline kicks off with such a definitive emotional judgment gone mad, your internal bias alarm should probably gently start ringing.
A little ping.
Yeah, just a little ping, prompting you to question the source's intent, its objectivity, maybe its underlying agenda. The real nugget here isn't just that headlines manipulate, we probably all suspect that. It's how quickly we can actually train our brains to spot these signs.
Building that reflex.
Exactly. Developing that instant mental reflex where your brain, instead of just accepting, immediately shifts gear. It goes into an interrogative mode. Okay, what's the intent here? Is this designed to inform me or just to get a reaction out of me?
Okay, so once we've kind of processed that initial emotional punch, that gone mad part, we get to the core assertion, the actual alleged event the headline wants us to focus on.
The supposed news.
Right, which is these big U.S. products quietly being made in Canada now. So let's pull apart each of those pieces, starting with big U.S. products. I mean, what does that even mean? What makes a product big?
It is, well, it feels quite intentionally vague, doesn't it?
Keyword.
What constitutes big? Does it mean the physical size? Like, are we talking bulldozers or airplanes?
Or maybe economic value, billions of dollars worth.
Could be. Or maybe there's symbolic importance. Products that are seen as quintessentially American or critical to the economy or national identity.
Right, like cars or something.
Exactly. But are they consumer goods? Industrial components, high-tech equipment? We don't know. The strategic lack of specific examples means the claim is incredibly broad. It allows for really wide interpretation by pretty much any reader.
So anyone can project their own concerns onto it.
Precisely. That broadness lets the headline resonate with a wide audience. Almost anyone can imagine some big U.S. product they care about, whether it's, cars or maybe microchips or maybe even military hardware for some people.
So it could be anything from, refrigerators to jet engines, microchips to monster trucks. The headline is basically inviting us to play fill in the blank with whatever big U.S. product we happen to be most worried about losing.
Yes.
And that vagueness, it serves a very clear rhetorical purpose, doesn't it?
Indeed. It's a form of rhetorical evasion, really. A clever way to avoid giving specific details that would allow the claim to be easily checked or disproven or even verified.
Makes it slippery.
Very slippery. It sounds significant, important, maybe alarming, but it's strategically empty of factual substance. It cultivates a sense of unease or concern, maybe, without ever having to pinpoint the exact cause or the effect, or even prove that the alleged problem actually exists on any meaningful scale. This is a common strategy when a publication wants to stir emotion or anxiety, but doesn't actually have the specific data to back up a precise claim. It's the art of implying a huge problem without giving you the details that would let you quantify it or fact-check it. The significance is purely implied, it's not demonstrated.
Okay, and then there's that really striking word, quietly. Quietly being made. When I see that, my first thought often jumps to something, clandestine, a bit suspicious.
Yeah, it has that flavor.
But what does quietly truly imply here, beyond just adding drama?
Quietly is another fascinating and, I think, highly effective word choice in this context.
Right.
It definitely adds an air of mystery, maybe secrecy, potentially even subterfuge, like you said. Does it suggest these shifts are happening, like, illicitly? Or that they're being deliberately hidden from the public by some, powerful entity?
Or could it just mean they're happening without big press releases?
Exactly. or maybe just as a normal course of business for private companies that don't announce every single operational tweak. The word choice itself, though, feels designed to pique curiosity and maybe a touch of suspicion. It invites the reader to imagine some kind of covert operation, rather than just a standard economic trend playing out.
It frames it differently.
It plays into a narrative that something is happening behind the scenes, something that you, the public, are maybe not supposed to know about. And that makes the headline itself feel like an expose, right? Like a shocking revelation.
So it's not just a manufacturing shift, it's presented as a secret manufacturing shift. That definitely adds a layer of intrigue, and for some people, maybe a sense of alarm.
Exactly. It's a subtle but powerful way to boost the dramatic effect of the headline. If products were just, openly or publicly being made in Canada, the headline might lose some of its punch, some of its urgency.
Yeah. Some U.S. products now made in Canada isn't quite as catchy.
Not quite. Quietly implies this hidden narrative. It suggests there's more to the story than meets the eye, and that the publication is perhaps courageously revealing a truth that others are trying to suppress. This is a classic tactic, really, to create a sense of urgency or importance around the information being presented, even when, as we'll explore more, the underlying facts are completely absent. It sets up the publication as the one brave enough to expose the hidden truth.
Right. And then finally, the geographical shift itself. In Canada now, this is the core factual claim of location, but again, like the other parts, it's presented without any specifics at all.
Just Canada.
Yeah. No particular provinces mentioned, no cities, no specific new factory openings discussed, no expansion projects named, no timeline for when now actually began, just Canada, the whole country.
Right. It's the critical pivot point of the headline's assertion this movement across an international border, specifically to the north. But just like the big U.S. products phrase, in Canada now, is presented without any specific, verifiable geographical markers or timelines.
Is it one product line? Several. Many.
Has this been happening slowly for years, or did it just suddenly accelerate now? We have no idea from this. The overall effect of this whole core assertion, these big U.S. products quietly being made in Canada now, is to make a significant, potentially alarming claim about a manufacturing shift.
But with zero backup.
Exactly. Without providing any specific examples or companies or data points whatsoever to back it up. It's a statement that just begs for evidence but provides none. It relies entirely on that dramatic combination of vagueness and suggestive secrecy to get its message across.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think, because the title of the publication itself directly attributes this shift. Remember, the full title is Trump's Northern Manufacturing Shift.
Ah, yes, the frame.
So the headline we're dissecting is operating within this broader, highly specific context that's already been established by the publication's title.
This attribution is absolutely critical to analyze. The headline implicitly, and actually, given the title quite explicitly, links the alleged manufacturing shift directly to the former administration.
It's not subtle.
No. The publication is titled Trump's Northern Manufacturing Shift, and the headline hammers it home. Trump gone mad is these big U.S. products quietly being made in Canada now. The phrasing strongly suggests direct causation. It implies this shift is a direct result of that administration's decisions, or maybe policies, or perhaps even a deliberate inaction. It definitely suggests culpability.
So it's not just saying, hey, this trend happened during his time in office.
No, it's framed as his shift.
It's explicitly his shift, implying he's directly responsible for it. It's not presented as just observing a parallel event. It's framed as a direct consequence of his actions or policies.
Precisely. The language there feels carefully chosen to convey direct responsibility, not just, a temporal correlation. However, and this is crucial, the source, at least in this excerpt we have, and critically, within the headline itself.
Provides zero evidence for that link.
Exactly. It provides no mechanism, no tangible evidence linking this alleged shift directly to any specific actions or policies or even inactions of the former administration. Was it a specific trade policy? Like, did changes to USMCA cause this? Was it a tax change? A regulatory shift to the U.S. versus Canada that made Canada more attractive?
We don't know.
We don't know from this source. The headline frames a significant economic trend, this supposed movement of manufacturing, but offers absolutely no underlying data to substantiate the why or the how of this alleged shift. What's fascinating here is the headline declares a shift and it assigns blame, but offers no data to substantiate either the shift itself or explain the why behind the assigned blame.
Yeah.
It's basically a claim of cause and effect, but without any supporting evidence for either the cause or the effect.
So it's presenting a very definitive conclusion. X happened because of Y, without showing any of the premises or data points that would lead a reasonable person to that conclusion. And crucially, without even proving X happened in the first place.
Exactly right. It completely bypasses the entire process of, evidence-based reasoning.
Just jumps straight to the verdict.
It expects the reader to just accept the causal link simply because it's stated, and perhaps because the emotional language gone mad has already primed them to accept it. In a media landscape where trust can be built or eroded incredibly quickly, this kind of declarative, unsubstantiated assertion is a powerful tool, isn't it? Whether for good or ill.
Definitely.
It appeals to existing beliefs, bypasses rational scrutiny.
Okay, this brings us to what might be the most striking aspect of this whole deep dive, and frankly, the most profound insight for you, the listener. The most powerful element of this single source isn't actually what it says. It's what it emphatically doesn't say. It's the absence of detail, the silence on key points that almost screams the loudest and tells us the most about the nature of this particular piece of information.
And this raises a really important question for us, doesn't it? How does a headline like this function effectively? How does it gain traction? How does it influence people without providing any supporting facts or detailed context?
Yeah, how does it work?
It seems to rely almost entirely on implication, suggestion, and that strong emotional appeal to convey its message, rather than relying on the strength of its factual basis. This is where we kind of shift from just analyzing the content itself to understanding the strategy behind its presentation.
So let's dig into that lack of tangible evidence, because it's truly remarkable when you list out how much is omitted. We're told big U.S. products are involved.
But which ones?
But zero specific product names, not one type of good mention. No companies identified, not a single manufacturer, not one corporation named.
No brand names?
Yeah.
Nothing.
No factory locations mentioned, either in Canada, where production supposedly moved, or in the U.S., where it allegedly left. No dates or timelines for when this shift supposedly occurred. Was it gradual, sudden, recent?
When is now?
Exactly. And absolutely no statistics. Nothing on manufacturing output, job numbers, overall economic impact. It's like a ghost story about manufacturing, full of dramatic implications, but completely devoid of any verifiable figures.
It is, in essence, a claim without a body of evidence. If you were writing a proper economic report or even just a basic news article about such a potentially significant shift,
These would be the first things you'd include.
there'd be the absolute minimum requirements for credibility you'd want to know. Which companies are involved specifically? Where were they making things before, and precisely where are they making them now? What kind of products are we actually talking about? Are they high-value critical components or just, consumer staples? How many jobs are affected, both lost in the U.S. and maybe gained in Canada? What are the quantifiable economic implications in both countries?
Basic questions.
Fundamental questions. The absence of these fundamental details makes it impossible for you, the reader, to verify the claim. It's impossible to quantify its scope and impossible to truly understand its validity or its significance. It just leaves you with an assertion floating in a void, anchored only by that strong emotional language and the implied disaster.
And it's not just the lack of specific data points either. There's also a complete lack of contextual information that would help us understand why such a shift, if it were happening, might occur.
Right. The why is missing, too.
Yeah. If this were happening, what would be the driving factors? Would it be, say, differences in labor costs? That's usually a huge factor in manufacturing decisions.
Or trade agreements?
Or maybe the implications of major trade agreements, like the USMCA, the successor to NAFTA. How does that impact cross-border trade and investment? Could it be concerns about supply chain resilience, maybe prompting companies to nearshore production after all the recent global disruptions?
Could be changing market demands, shifts in consumer preferences.
Or maybe differences in regulations, corporate tax structures between Canada and the U.S. Any of those could be relevant, but
None of that is even hinted at within the headline itself.
not a whisper.
And, crucially, there's zero historical context provided whatsoever. Was there already a trend of manufacturing moving to Canada over decades, making this just a continuation? Or is this being presented as some sudden, unprecedented shift?
We can't tell.
Without that vital context, it's impossible to gauge the true significance or uniqueness of the claim, even if it turned out to be factually accurate in some limited way. The headline, in its isolation, offers this stark declaration but provides absolutely no framework for understanding the complex forces always at play in global manufacturing. It doesn't allow for any nuanced understanding of the economic landscape. It's just a snapshot without a story, without a background.
And then there's the attribution, or maybe the striking lack of authoritative attribution. Who is actually making these claims?
Good question.
Is it an anonymous source inside a company? Is it an expert analysis from an economist or an academic? Is it based on an official government report from either side of the border? Or is the publication just presenting this as its own definitive finding without citing any external sources at all?
Well, as it's presented here, just in the headline and the publication title,
It seems like the publication is the source.
it functions as a declarative statement for the publication itself. There are no quotes from industry leaders visible here, no citations of economic reports, no named experts in trade or manufacturing weighing in, no government officials referenced.
Nothing to back it up externally.
No. It's a statement of alleged fact without any apparent external validation. This, again, leaves the reader in a position where they just have to accept the claim based on the publication's authority alone, which, given a highly opinionated and sensational opening gone mad, is already, a bit suspect.
You're already questioning the source's objectivity.
Exactly. And this scenario perfectly illustrates the challenge of trying to be well-informed in an information environment where headlines are often, frankly, designed for clicks and emotional resonance rather than comprehensive, substantiated understanding.
Yeah.
It just underscores the critical importance of evaluating the validity and the completeness of claims, especially those presented with such strong emotional framing, but minimal, or in this case, zero substance.
So the core nugget of knowledge we gain from this whole exercise isn't really about manufacturing trends or economic policy debates.
No, not directly.
It's about media literacy at its most practical level. It's about understanding that sometimes the most profound insight in a deep dive is recognizing the absence of information and thinking about what that absence implies about the source itself. It forces us to ask, okay, what is the purpose of this headline if its primary function clearly isn't to inform with facts and context?
Exactly. It teaches us, hopefully, to look beyond the surface, to identify the rhetorical tools being used, and to recognize when we are being nudged towards an emotional reaction rather than being guided towards an informed conclusion. It highlights that the responsibility for being truly well-informed lies significantly with us, the consumers of information, and our ability to critically question what's presented, and maybe even more importantly, to notice and question what's omitted.
Being an active reader.
It's about empowering you, the listener, to be an active participant in your own understanding of the world, rather than just a passive recipient of these pre-digested narratives. This particular headline is a powerful little case study in the economics of attention, where information is often packaged for maximum emotional impact and potential virality, not necessarily for factual depth or accuracy.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us, the listener, trying to understand what's happening in the world when the information we get is sometimes minimal like this, or strategically incomplete, or maybe just designed to provoke? Let's try a hypothetical journey for a moment.
A thought experiment.
Exactly. If this claim were true, let's just imagine for a second. If big U.S. products were quietly being made in Canada now, what are some plausible reasons why it might be happening quietly? And what could be the broader implications? Now, we need to be super clear here. We are now engaging in a thought experiment, drawing on general economic and business principles. We're exploring the potential landscape such a headline might hint at.
But always remembering,
the original source provides absolutely none of this context. This is us thinking hypothetically based on the claim.
that's a crucial distinction. We're using the headline purely as a prompt for inquiry, not as a factual basis.
Wow.
So hypothetically, if such a manufacturing shift were indeed occurring, there could be several general factors that might lead to it happening without major public announcements.
Okay.
Well, for one, companies often make competitive strategic decisions privately. They need to maintain an edge over rivals, or maybe avoid public scrutiny during a sensitive transition.
Thanks.
Major business decisions, especially about where to locate manufacturing, are frequently internal matters. They aren't necessarily subject to public disclosure unless they're, say, of a massive scale, or legally required for public companies, or perhaps part of a big public relations campaign.
So small shifts might just fly under the radar?
Exactly. Smaller scale shifts within complex global supply chains might simply not register as newsworthy to mainstream media. Or they might involve private agreements between companies that just aren't intended for public knowledge.
Or maybe they want it to be quiet.
That's possible too. Perhaps companies might want to avoid a negative public reaction if the move is perceived badly by certain groups like labor unions, or maybe political groups focused on keeping production domestic.
Okay.
So these are all potential reasons for a quiet shift if the claim were substantiated. But, and I have to stress this again,
The source gives us none of this.
the source itself provides none of these explanations. We're engaging in a thought exercise based on common business practices, not drawing information from the headline we're analyzing.
Right. So if a company decides to shift some production lines, they're not necessarily going to hold a press conference about it unless it's maybe part of launching a huge new factory or a big rebranding announcement.
Probably not.
It could simply be a change in their internal logistics, maybe a response to winning a new contract, or just part of ongoing cost-saving efforts or efficiency measures. It might be entirely routine for them, even if the cumulative effect could be significant for others down the line.
Precisely. The quiet aspect, while it's sensationalized in the headline to suggest something fishy, could actually stem from a whole myriad of non-conspiratorial routine business reasons. Or, as we discussed, it could be a complete fabrication in the first place. The point is, the headline uses quietly to suggest something more nefarious or secretive, rather than just normal business operations, even if those operations could potentially have a significant impact.
Got it. Okay, and if we really stretch this hypothetical scenario out, if big U.S. products were indeed moving to Canada on some significant scale, what might be the broad implications? Let's think across different sectors, maybe U.S. jobs, domestic manufacturing capacity, supply chain resilience, trade policy debates. Again, stressing this is a detailed thought exercise based entirely on the unsubstantiated claim, not on facts provided by this source.
Understood. If the claim were factual and represented a significant scale of movement, the implications would indeed be substantial and pretty multifaceted. Let's break it down.
Okay.
For U.S. jobs, well, such a shift could mean direct job losses in whatever specific manufacturing sectors were affected. That would impact local communities, maybe entire regions that rely heavily on those industries.
And not just factory floor jobs.
No, exactly. It's not just the assembly line jobs. It includes support roles, logistics, local suppliers, ancillary services. It could also mean less future job growth in those sectors within the U.S.
Okay, what about domestic manufacturing capacity?
That could lead to underutilized factories, maybe even shuttered plants in the U.S., which would weaken the overall industrial base. This has knock-on effects, potentially even for national security, right? If the ability to produce critical goods domestically becomes compromised.
Making the country more reliant on outside sources.
Yes, more reliant on foreign supply chains. For instance, in times of crisis, a pandemic, a conflict, a nation needs to be able to ramp up production of the essential items, maybe medical supplies, defense equipment. Losing capacity makes that harder.
Right. And supply chain resilience, that's been a huge topic lately.
It has. And a shift to Canada could actually cut both ways here, depending on the specifics.
How so?
Well, moving production from, say, distant overseas locations to Canada, that's often called nearshoring, that could actually improve supply chain resilience in some ways.
By being closer.
Yeah, shortening lead times, reducing transportation costs, operating within a more familiar legal and regulatory environment compared to somewhere halfway across the world.
Okay, that makes sense.
However, it still creates a dependency on a foreign country for production. Even if it's a close ally like Canada, it still represents a degree of external vulnerability compared to purely domestic manufacturing. So it's a complex trade-off.
Gotcha. And finally, trade policy discussions.
Oh, such a shift, if real and substantial, would undoubtedly become a huge talking point. It could spark new debates about existing trade agreements, particularly the USMCA.
Calls to change it.
Potentially trigger calls for renegotiation, maybe new tariffs, or changes in government incentives to encourage domestic production instead. Specific bits within the USMCA, like rules of origin for car parts or agricultural quotas, could be directly impacted. It could shift investment decisions or even trigger new trade disputes if a major manufacturing exodus to Canada were actually happening. Policymakers would certainly be under pressure to respond to perceived job losses or declining industrial capacity.
It's really fascinating how just a single unverified sentence can trigger such a cascade of complex what-if scenarios. It forces us to think about these broader economic landscapes, doesn't it?
It really does.
And then that specific choice of northern in the publication title trumps northern manufacturing shift. Why Canada specifically, according to the claim, as opposed to, say, Mexico, or other global manufacturing hubs in Asia or Europe, are there general factors, hypothetically, that might make Canada an attractive destination for U.S. manufacturing shifts?
That's another insightful hypothetical angle to consider. If a U.S. company were looking to shift production north to Canada, there are definitely several general factors that often make Canada an attractive location, especially when compared to other global options.
Like what?
Well, proximity is obviously a huge one.
Right next door.
Being geographically adjacent dramatically cuts shipping costs and transit times. It allows for much more agile, maybe just-in-time supply chains. That's a massive advantage over more distant global manufacturing centers. Then there's the established trade relationship. The USMCA provides a pretty stable framework for relatively seamless cross-border trade. It minimizes most tariff barriers, harmonizes some regulations. That predictability and reduced friction is very appealing for businesses planning long-term investments.
Less hassle, potentially.
Yeah, and related to that, similar regulatory environments. In many sectors, Canada shares a similar regulatory framework, labor laws, environmental standards with the U.S. This can make compliance easier for companies already used to operating within a North American context. It might reduce the complexity and cost of setting up new operations compared to, say, navigating some Asian markets.
What about the workforce?
Skilled workforce is another factor. Canada has a highly educated and skilled labor pool, particularly in fields like advanced manufacturing, technology, and engineering, which could be a significant draw for complex production processes.
Anything else?
Energy costs can be competitive in certain provinces, especially those with lots of hydropower. That can be a big deal for energy-intensive industrial operations. Also, government incentives. Both federal and provincial Canadian governments often offer various tax breaks, grants, or subsidies to attract foreign investment and encourage job creation in specific sectors. That can definitely sweeten the deal for a relocating company.
Makes sense.
And sometimes currency fluctuations. If the Canadian dollar is weaker relative to the U.S. dollar, that can make manufacturing in Canada more cost-effective for U.S.-based companies, paying expenses in Canadian dollars but earning revenue in U.S. dollars.
Okay, so there are plausible reasons why Canada might be chosen, hypothetically.
Yes. So these are all powerful hypothetical contributing factors that could influence cross-border shifts if they were occurring and if they were driven by rational business logic. But again, and it's so vital to keep stating this clearly,
This is not from the source.
this is not information provided by the source itself. The source merely states the location, Canada, without explaining any rationale, any why. The headline serves as a powerful prompt for our inquiry and critical evaluation, but it is absolutely not a definitive answer or a factual report.
It's clear then, isn't it? This single provocative headline serves as, well, a potent catalyst for inquiry and critical evaluation, much more than it serves as a source of definitive answers.
Absolutely.
It really highlights the indispensable role of you, the listener, in actively seeking out more comprehensive fact-based sources if you truly want to become well-informed on an issue. You just cannot simply read a headline like this and assume it contains the full, unbiased truth.
It's an active process, being informed. You can't just passively absorb information, especially when it's presented in such an emotionally charged and, frankly, fact-light manner as this headline is. This whole deep dive into just one single headline really demonstrates just how much critical thinking is required to navigate the modern information landscape effectively. It pushes us to question not just what is being said, but how it's being said, why it's being said that way, and crucially, what's being left unsaid.
And what a deep dive it's been. We started with a headline that was so brief, seemingly so simple on the surface.
Just a handful of words.
Yet its very construction, its specific word choices, the things it omitted that allowed us to explore this whole ecosystem of how information gets presented, how it's consumed, and the critical role we all play in deciphering it. We've basically used it as a micro case study in the world of media today.
A very revealing one.
We've seen how that sensational language, like Trump gone mad, can immediately try to bias a reader's perception, signaling an opinionated stance right from the start, not a factual report, and how that's a common strategy, really, for capturing attention in our crowded digital age. We dissected the deliberate vagueness, big U.S. products, and that suggestive secrecy quietly being made. We revealed how that kind of phrasing can create a sense of significance and intrigue without offering any concrete, verifiable data to back it up.
All smoke, no fire, potentially.
And we've highlighted the profound, deliberate absence of detail. No product names, no companies, no statistics, no context, which, as we've discovered today, is often far more telling about the source's actual intent than what is explicitly stated on the page.
This exercise really just underscores the immense value of developing a highly discerning eye for claims, especially those claims that are loaded up with strong emotion but are conspicuously lacking in supporting evidence.
That skepticism is key.
It encourages a healthy skepticism, absolutely. And maybe a robust habit of asking, okay, where's the proof? Or what's missing here? Or even, what's the agenda behind framing it this specific way whenever you're confronted with these impactful assertions?
It's about taking control back a bit.
Yes. It's about empowering you, the listener, to be an active, critical participant in forming your own understanding of the world, rather than just being a passive recipient of these pre-digested, often biased narratives. This is really the essence of being truly well-informed, especially in an era of information overload.
So as you go about your day and you inevitably encounter countless headlines all vying for your attention, many designed to stir your emotions, here's a final thought for reflection we want to leave you with. What stands out to you most about how this kind of information, like the headline we dissected, is presented? And what questions does it leave you with about the broader media landscape and maybe even about your own information consumption habits?
Maybe think beyond that, too. In a world just flooded with headlines all competing for eyeballs, how do we actually discern between a potent question that genuinely deserves further rigorous exploration and what might just be a mere provocation designed only to elicit a knee-jerk reaction?
That's a tough distinction sometimes.
It is. And what responsibility do we have as individuals to actively look for those quiet details, that factual context that often lies hidden behind the loud sensational claims? It's about moving beyond simply being informed, perhaps, towards being truly cognizant of the information you consume and how it's trying to shape you.
Powerful questions indeed for a very complex information environment.
Watching Global Mind News. If you found this report helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We bring you the facts, insights, and updates that matter, straight from the source. See you in the next report.